Hey, so are you an equestrian that's trying to build more trust with your mare? And if so, are you interested in how you can build trust not only in the saddle but out of the saddle as well? This is not to exclude geldings, but mares require an extra level of trust because they naturally come with a higher level of self-preservation. And so if you conflict with what a mare perceives as going against her better judgment, she's going to have something to say a heck of a lot faster than any gelding. But by watching this video, you're not only going to gain some tips and tricks to bonding with your horse, but also a simple test so that you can see how close you are to being on track with that bond or building that bond. So building a bond with your horse not only takes time, but it takes an incredible amount of patience. But even by just wanting one, you're already on the right track. Honestly, since I've been raising homebreds, I've learned a lot about building trust and instilling trust in horses. And to be honest, it can be really frustrating when you're trying to train an animal that is so insistent on being a flight animal, especially when you're trying to show them a better way to do things. But yet they're insistent on being flight animals and always putting themselves in more danger. Honestly, sometimes I feel like my whole job is just saving horses from themselves, like their worst enemy. Hi. But if you can break through that natural instinct and replace it with training and knowledge, you can build an unbreakable and unshakable bond with any horse. Mares especially. So by the end of this video, you will know my number one secret to training horses, and then my number one test for seeing how on track and how close you are to not only building that bond, but solidifying it. So any new thing you ask them to do, it's already a great idea in their head. Hey, my name is Alyssa Schaefer, and the brown one in this video, is Gemini. She's a 2-year-old, and she's my third homebred and future event horse. So I've been competing horses for about 15 years now, and this is not only my third homebred, but also my third mare. So gender, of course, is kind of a sensitive topic right now, but of course, when it comes to the different genders, there are common patterns. And so, but of course, breed, age, nature versus nurture, all of these can affect where a horse is starting from. But as horse owners, it becomes our individual job to piece together those different experiences that adds up to, where your horse is starting from. But each of their individual experiences with each individual question is going to add up to who your horse is and where they're starting from. So in reality, horse training is helping a horse overcome each one of their life obstacles with the most positive experience that you can give them, because the more times that you create and generate a positive training experience, that's, how you're going to build that bond with your horse where they actually look to you for guidance when they're being asked new questions, and not you having to seek them out, but they seek you out. And, they're just going to look at, it creates a future pattern of them looking to you instead of relying on their instincts, which generally put them in worse situations, as I have learned wholeheartedly with homebreds. So are you guys ready to hear my number one secret weapon when it comes to training horses? It's treats. Now, some of you right off the bat are going to be like, oh, that's it. And then the other half of you are going to be like, well, that's terrible advice. But hear me out for a second. I'm not saying to just give your horse treats out of the blue for no reason. I am saying treats are my secret weapon because treats always need to signify signify a positive reaction to a positive reaction to a positive action. The reason treats are my secret weapon is because animals in general have a very basic survival like foundation, food and water. Those are the two things. If you can provide a horse with food or with water, and they correlate you to that survival need, then a horse or any animal is instantly going to trust you because you literally signify life for that animal. And for a horse and rider, just being the main source of survival can be a great foundation for any bond and relationship that you're building with your animal. But here's the deal. You can only use treats when you're signifying a positive behavior to then encourage. So then you also create a streamline of positive behavior. Every single time something positive happens, they get this treat. That will, in their brain, create a pattern where every single time they do something positive, if they get that treat, then that tells them, that signifies to them that they did the right thing, that they made the right choice, that what they did was very positive. And then, of course, rewarding. And on the flip side, I'm going to add this as a bonus tip, that you also have to have a streamline for when they're doing something wrong. For me in particular, any of my horses, if you say the word hey in a deep angry tone, every single one of them will stand hut, like, oh, mom's pissed. But every single one of my horses has been trained to know that if they hear that word in that tone, whatever they are doing, they must stop immediately. But, that's just mine. You can have your own word. It could be stop. It could be no. It could be get off me. Hey. Clearly, I've had to say that to her more than once. This is Mary Mac. The point really is to be consistent so that your horse develops pattern recognition for both positive and negative reinforcement. Now, of course, you want to create as many positive experiences as possible, but having those negative experiences and having the consistency of when something negative happens, that it gets kind of immediately shut down along with your very clear-cut rules. Don't be afraid to discipline your horse, because they respect when people are very clear about their rules. So you have to be very clear when it's negative and very clear when it's positive. Oh, you want to scratch with me? Yeah, I know. Hi, Nugget. It's chaos in here. But anyway, by having those consistent and also very clear-cut rules, your horse is going to know exactly what path to choose in a situation when they're confronting something they've never done before or that they don't know about. So I know I gave you a lot to chew on, but the first step is to, sit back and think about you and your horse's patterns. Do they know when you're happy? Do they know when you're upset? Do they know when they're crossing a boundary? Do you have a very clear-cut instruction when they have crossed a line that is absolutely unacceptable? Versus, also, do they know when you are extremely happy with their performance and their behavior? Do they always, if you say good girl, or if you say good job, or if you give them a carrot, do they know that that means that they have made the right choice? So here's a really simple application of this to think about. If you bring a treat with you every single time you go get your horse, and in scenario A, you walk up to your horse, you put the halter on and you give them the treat, but you go to them every time you do that. Versus if instead of you going to them and giving them the treat to put the halter on, if every single time they must walk up to you and then they get the treat and you put the halter on, that's going to teach your horse, simply put, if they come up to you, then they will get positive reinforcement. Versus, if you have to constantly go up to them and if you have to constantly chase them down and then they get the treat, then that teaches them that you will come get them and then they get positive reinforcement. Versus the simple act of, if you come to me, you will be rewarded with a treat. Versus, even if I have to come chase and hunt you down, then you get a treat. Do you see the difference there between how your horse could conceptually perceive those two different actions? One is going to be, hey, every time I go hang out with this human, I get a treat. The other one is, I don't have to try or do anything because that human's going to come up to me and give me a treat every single time. I understand we're getting angry in here, but I'm not giving you a treat until we're done. Perfect example. So I hope that you have realized and maybe recognized how valuable horse butt. So with technology nowadays, this is something that you can literally learn in 2 minutes instead of, somebody having to spend 10, 15, 20 years with horses developing and recognizing this simple pattern. So I hope this has I hope this has been valuable and fun for you, and has given you maybe something to think about how you use your own horse patterns, about how you use your own horse patterns to not only influence the horses that you have, but also how you will work with your horses in the future. Because, you know, it's definitely a learned, like, over time, you know, like, you get more comfortable with them. As you've seen, I have these horses crawling all over me, but it doesn't bother me, because we all know that as soon as they get too aggressive with me, they hear that word and they all like, oh my God, she's mad. Maybe except for this one. She doesn't know yet, because she's still little. So lastly, there's a very simple test that I use on all of my babies to see how far they are in building that connection with me, and also how far they are down the road of trusting me personally. So funny enough, everybody that rides horses that has never raised a horse from the ground up, like, nobody ever thinks twice about putting a halter on a horse, right? Like it's just, when you go get a horse, you put the halter on and you move on with your life. You know, when you deal with horses that are 3-year-old plus, they have been putting that halter on for 3 years now. But there was somebody who had to put the halter on the very first time. And let me tell you, that conversation probably didn't go very well, because the horses don't naturally want crap on their head, you know, like, they really don't. But what a halter signifies to a horse is, okay, this is time for me to listen to the human. Versus when they don't have a halter on, they very much have the internal direction of, I'm free, right? Versus when they put the halter on, all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm being controlled by this human now. So a simple test is to go up to your horse when they're in a pasture or when they're free or loose in an arena, and simply try and lift their legs up like you were going to pick their feet, and see what happens. Now, don't do this in like an open stall where there's like a box and there's no area for them to escape, because there's a very real possibility that when you ask your horse to do something when they don't have their halter on, that they are simply just going to walk away from you. Like, no, I don't care. But this is why this is my simple test, because with the homebreds, when at the point where I can not only lift their feet with the halter on because they know that's what they're supposed to do, but then also they lift their feet when I don't have the halter on because they know that's what they're supposed to do. That's when I know that, like, our bond has been, solidified as a solid foundation, because they recognize that no matter when the instruction is happening, either, no biting, you're squishing me. So, as I said, don't do this in a stall or in a locked area that's not like a wide open space, because honestly, the whole point of this test is so they voluntarily, like, the whole point of this test is passing it means they voluntarily stand next to you and execute whatever you ask them to do. You want me to scratch your butt? Is this what you're asking for? Okay. This is having horses from a young age. They put their butt on you because they want to be scratched. But anyway, this is a simple test that you can perform that will tell you whether or not a horse is actually listening to you because they respect you all times, whether they have a halter on or whether they don't, or whether their respect and their listening is conditional to when you are, quote unquote, working with them. The ultimate goal being that they listen to you regardless of the situation. Comment below after you try and let me know how it goes. Let me know if you were successful or resoundingly unsuccessful when it comes to training, homebreds and baby horses. I have literally had to swallow my pride a few times and have to say, we're just not there yet. But it does, after you are able to complete this and you're able to really know that your horse is going to listen to you, whether the halter's on, whether the halter's off, whether they're free, whether they're, any of that, regardless of the situation, it makes when you do have the tack on and when they are required to listen to you, that much more powerful. As I said, if you weren't successful or if your horse walked away from you, that's okay. That is just your starting point. And then you obviously know what the end goal is. So you work on it every single day until you have the success that you want and the result that you want. Which is why in the beginning of this video, I said that training horses takes an incredible amount of patience. Also, as I said, if your horse does it right, don't forget to give them a treat so that they recognize that what you asked them to do and then what they did as a result was the right choice. Because the only way that you're going to build a successful pattern of good behavior in your horse is if they 100% every time they do something can recognize whether that was the right choice or the wrong choice. Plus, it'll make it much easier the next time you ask them to make the right choice because they clearly knew what it was. So, okay, I know, you want me to scratch your butt. Anyway, I'm gonna bond with this mare. Happy bonding.